Irving and being scared of Uncle Irving. And that's a lesson that I've carried with me in my professional responsibilities and relationships with law enforcement, because I've learned over the years that police work is very hard. Police work also requires a lot of sacrifice for the individuals, but more importantly, and as important as I look out on the audience today, sacrifices by the families, given the nature of the work, the long hours, the sacrifices that are made to family life, and unfortunately the ultimate sacrifices that are made by officers who give their lives in the line of duty. It was interesting in preparation for today, looking at the history of the St. Paul police officers who had died in the line of duty. And a couple of things came out. I don't want to say they're common themes, but they exemplify the nature of the work and the sacrifices and the suddenness, sometimes as exemplified by the experiences this community suffered through several weeks ago with Sergeant Joe Bergeron, and that is sort of the suddenness of events. I was struck with maybe some of the similarities with the first St. Paul police officer to be killed. It's in the program. Officer Daniel O'Connell shot off duty while he was investigating a burglary in a home over on Dayton Avenue in 1882. And I couldn't help but think the more things change, the more they stay the same in terms of the facts and circumstances of that first officer from the St. Paul Police Department who sacrificed his life in the line of duty. The circumstances of that encounter have been repeated on far too many occasions with respect to officers losing their lives in the line of duty. 128 years ago, it was something as simple as suspicious activity and an officer investigating and running into a selfish criminal and gunplay, and a life is ended. That same kind of tragic encounter this community experienced several weeks ago. The same kind of selfish, self-centered individual who takes the life of an officer sworn to protect and serve. Chance encounter, gunfire, and a sacrifice made by family and by a community. The most recent St. Paul officer to give his life in the line of duty, Gerald Vick, was shot May 6, 2005, murdered May 6, 2005. And again, in looking at the history of the 30 officers who've given their life in the line of duty for the St. Paul Police Department, over half of them died in very similar incidents involving gunplay with a self-centered, selfish criminal who takes their life in a matter of seconds in gunplay. Sergeant Vick's murder was one that exemplifies the chance encounter and the risk that officers take every day when they go on duty. Police work is hard. Before Sergeant Vick's untimely death, and I know that there are a number of family members there, I know because the last time I had the opportunity to speak at this memorial was on the occasion when I was serving as the United States Attorney in 2000, and the last officers to give their lives in the line of duty for St. Paul were Ron Ryan Jr. and Tim Jones, under, again, very similar circumstances. And it is, again, a reminder of how hard police work is. Between 1882 and 2005, you see in the program 30 St. Paul police officers have given their lives, and their families have made the ultimate sacrifice in carrying out their responsibilities to protect and serve our communities. On my way out this morning, I did a little research and noticed that the latest law enforcement officer to die in the line of duty in the United States was Deputy Brian McAfee in Georgia, who was shot and killed executing a warrant to arrest a convicted rapist in Georgia. And during the course of that execution of the warrant, he was shot and killed. 28 years old, had celebrated his birthday the day before and left behind a wife and a young child. And far too often, as you've heard from other speakers, that happens far too often, but it goes with the job. The families know that, the officers standing in the back know that, law enforcement officers around the country lay their lives on the line every day that they put on that badge and fulfill their oath to protect and serve our communities. Sergeant Bergeron's funeral was the first line-of-duty funeral I've had the opportunity to attend. I've attended military funerals before, but the thing that struck me about Sergeant Bergeron's funeral was the cohesiveness of the community and how everyone rallied around the event, the department, the profession, and the family. And I wish there was a way to capture that sense of duty, that sense of honor, and that sense of responsibility for the collective good that I felt in the cathedral and spread it throughout the community so that all of our citizens understand the sacrifices that are made by law enforcement officers. One of the things that I treasure in all of the individual prosecutors, whether they're state or federal, when they get up in court, they have the opportunity to present matters at the back end of the criminal justice process. And they have the honor and the privilege of standing up in court and representing the state of Minnesota or the United States in a criminal matter. And I know every prosecutor that I've ever met, still their hair stands up when they have the opportunity to say, for example, Todd Jones on behalf of the United States of America. And I think one of the things that is so special about that is because at that moment you represent in our criminal justice system the people of the United States in an effort to seek justice. The rule of law is an important fundamental cornerstone of our democracy and of the freedoms that we all cherish and represent. And while prosecutors and judges have a part to play in that process, there's a reason that they call policemen peace officers. That is our first line of the rule of law here in the United States. It is the first line represented by law enforcement officers that allows us as a civil democratic society to function. And I'm here today on behalf of the people of the United States to say to you as family members, thank you for the sacrifice that you have made and continue to make every day. And thank you to the officers who every day continue to protect and serve this community. Thank you.
Thank you, U.S. Attorney Jones, for sharing your thoughts with us today and for being our keynote speaker. The floral wreaths in honor of our department colleagues will now be presented. The wreath donated by the St. Paul Police Federation will be presented by Federation President Dave Titus and Sergeant Jim Falkowski. The wreath donated by the St. Paul Police Retirement Association will be presented by retirees Ed Steenberg and Officer Dave Hubinet. Donated by Public Safety Post 449 will be presented by retired officers Ed Buellman and Don Swenson. The wreath donated by St. Paul Police Reserve officers will be presented by Reserve Officers Justin Mulligan and Larry Langois. The wreath donated by St. Paul Police Explorers will be presented by Jonathan Knoll and Rebecca McCrosty. Donated by St. Paul Police Chaplains will be presented by Chaplains Roger Koskinen and Michael Trenery. The St. Paul Federation Memorial Bell Ringers for today's event are Officer Tim Bradley and Police Forensic Artist Paul Johnson. Chief Harrington will now read the roll call of the department's slain officers.
Daniel O'Connell. Hans Hansen. Thomas McCarrick. Charles Meyer. James W. Finn. Frank Fraser. Michael J. Sullivan. Hans Amelt. Paul Gottfried. William W. McClintock. George A. Stegner. William F. Wilson. E. Earl Hackert. Frank Milanowski. Albert J. Cunin. Cal H. Leadham. Fred A. Pitch. John Schultz. Axel J. Soderberg. Matthew Weiss. Lawrence F. Tierney. Richard G. Hinshaw. Alan G. Lee. Alfred V. Sandquist. James T. Sackett, Sackett Sr. John H. Larson. John J. O'Brien. Ronald M. Ryan, Jr. Timothy Nipper Jones. Gerald D. Vick.
Party, prepare to fire. Ready, aim, fire! Ready, aim, fire! Ready, aim, fire! Hey, set! Hook!
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now ask Chaplain Judd to give us the benediction.
Let's pray. Father God, we've come before you today to pay tribute to the brave officers who courageously gave their lives to serve and protect as peacekeepers for the St. Paul Police Department. Because of their loyal devotion to their duties, have rendered a dedicated service, and in so doing have established for themselves an enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. Lord, we know that law enforcement is very near to your heart. You stand in favor of those officers that serve as the thin blue line for your people by safeguarding life and property, protecting the community from violence and disorder, by guarding the innocent from deception and the weak from harm and intimidation. Lord, although it is fitting and right that we, as men and women, give honor to whom honor is due and pay tribute to these brave officers here today, even more important, we know that you, who are the great God of peace, do honor and esteem them as well. They were not only servants of the people of St. Paul, but servants of you, Lord. We know that their brave lives were not wasted or given in vain. May we never forget, but always salute their valiant deeds. They are true heroes in courage and honor. Lord, we understand that this is a day dedicated to the memory of their brave lives. It is also a day for all of us to be redevoted to the fight that they so courageously fought. They have passed the baton to us to renew our strength in this battle, and thus guarantee that their lives were not given inconsequentially, but were laid down as a dedicated price for the enduring freedom of the citizens of St. Paul. Thank you, Lord, for comforting and healing the broken hearts of the families and friends of all those who have lost their lives in the performance of duty. We also pray for all those who are currently involved in law enforcement, that you would continue to guide, shield, encourage, and protect them as they uphold your peace. In your mighty name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Judd. In closing, thank you for being here. We must remember their sacrifice and honor their memory. Officers, thank you for the thank you for the work you do and the risks you endure. Be careful and always remember the fallen officers. Also, we must remember our members of the St. Paul Police Department who are serving overseas. Sergeant Tina Kill, Officers Dan Collier and Brian Townsend. And finally, let's remember our recent fallen officers, Sergeant Joe Bergeron and Officer Richard Crittenden, and pray for their families. Also, pray for a full recovery for Officer Dave Longben. Please stand for the retiring of the colors.